There are moments in professional baseball that stop everything. Moments where a single decision, a single outburst, or a single comment changes the trajectory of a career forever. What Takashi Murakami did at that NPB press conference was exactly that kind of moment. And what happened next, the White Sox's response, the punishment handed down, and most shockingly, Shohei Ohtani's refusal to accept his apology, has created a story that has left the entire baseball world completely speechless. This is not a minor controversy. This is a career-defining crisis, and for Murakami, the consequences may be impossible to come back from. To understand the full weight of what is happening right now, you need to go back to the moment this all began. At what should have been a routine NPB press conference, Takashi Murakami did something that nobody in that room expected. In front of journalists, officials, and cameras broadcasting to the entire Japanese baseball community, Murakami made a series of abusive remarks that immediately silenced the room. Those who were present described the atmosphere as instantly uncomfortable. The moment the words left Murakami's mouth, it was clear to everyone watching that something had gone seriously, irreversibly wrong. Press conferences in Japanese baseball have a well-established culture of professionalism and respect. Players and managers are expected to speak carefully, acknowledge their responsibilities, and represent their organizations with dignity. What Murakami delivered instead was the complete opposite of that. The remarks were not a slip of the tongue. They were not a moment of frustration that quickly passed. According to multiple sources who attended the press conference, Murakami spoke with a directness and an intensity that suggested these were things he had been holding inside for a long time. He did not appear to hesitate. He did not appear to be aware of or concerned about the consequences of what he was saying. He simply said what he said, and in doing so, he set off a chain of events that has now completely upended his professional life. Within minutes of the press conference ending, footage of Murakami's remarks was circulating across social media platforms. By the time the evening news programs in Japan went on air, his name was the top story in sports across the entire country. The reaction was swift, widespread, and overwhelmingly negative. Former players, coaches, journalists, and fans all responded with the same basic message: what Murakami did was unacceptable, and there had to be serious consequences. What made the situation even more dramatic was what came immediately after the press conference. Rather than issuing an apology or attempting to walk back his remarks, Murakami did something that shocked everyone following the story even further. He declared his intention to leave Japanese baseball entirely. The announcement was as blunt as it was unexpected. Murakami made clear that he no longer wished to be part of the NPB system, that he felt his relationship with Japanese baseball had reached a point of no return, and that he was prepared to walk away from everything he had built in Japan in order to pursue opportunities elsewhere. For a player of Murakami's profile and history within Japanese baseball, this declaration was nothing short of extraordinary. Those close to Murakami described him as someone who had been building toward this moment for some time. There had been signs, they said, that his relationship with the broader NPB establishment had been strained for months. The press conference was the breaking point, the moment where everything that had been quietly building finally erupted into the open in the most public and damaging way possible. But declaring a departure is one thing. The response from his MLB employers was something else entirely, and it arrived with a speed and severity that made clear just how seriously the White Sox organization was taking what had happened. The Chicago White Sox did not wait long to act. Within a short period of Murakami's press conference remarks becoming public, the White Sox front office began an internal review of the situation. The GM and manager were reportedly in direct communication almost immediately, discussing the organization's options and what response would be appropriate given the seriousness of what had occurred. What they decided was severe. The punishment handed down by the White Sox is one of the harshest responses to a player conduct issue that the organization has delivered in recent memory. 3 separate actions were taken simultaneously, and together they represent a comprehensive and devastating professional consequence for Murakami. First, Murakami was officially demoted. His standing within the organization has been formally reduced, removing him from the position and status he had worked to build since joining the White Sox. This demotion is not symbolic. It has immediate and practical implications for his role within the team, his access to resources, and his standing in the eyes of the coaching staff and front office going forward. Second, his salary was cut. The financial consequence of Murakami's actions has been made real and significant. The exact figure has not been officially disclosed, but sources within the organization indicate that the reduction is substantial, a number that reflects how seriously the White Sox view the damage that Murakami's conduct has caused to the organization's reputation and its relationships within the Japanese baseball community. Third, and most significantly, Murakami has been handed a 1-year suspension. This is the punishment that has generated the biggest reaction across the baseball world. A full year away from the game, away from his teammates, away from competition. For a professional athlete, 1 year is an enormous amount of time. It means missing an entire season of development, competition, and opportunity. It means watching from the outside while the game moves forward without you. The White Sox GM addressed the media following the announcement of these punishments and made the organization's position absolutely clear. He stated that the White Sox hold all of their players to the highest standard of professional conduct, both on and off the field. He said that Murakami's remarks at the NPB press conference represented a fundamental failure to meet that standard, and that the organization had a responsibility to respond in a way that reflected how seriously it takes those values. He left no doubt that the 3 punishments handed down were considered deliberate and final. But as severe as the White Sox punishment was, it was not the moment that sent the biggest shockwave through the baseball world. That moment came when Shohei Ohtani refused to accept Murakami's apology. Following the announcement of his punishments, Murakami reached out to several individuals he felt he owed an apology to. Among those individuals was Shohei Ohtani. Given Ohtani's status as the face of Japanese baseball, his history with Murakami through their time together with Samurai Japan, and the fact that Murakami's remarks had reflected badly on the entire Japanese baseball community that Ohtani represents, it made sense that Murakami would attempt to reach out to him directly. What he received in response was something he clearly did not expect. Otani refused the apology. Not quietly, not privately, not in a way that could be managed or kept out of the public eye. His refusal became known, and when it did, the single comment that accompanied that refusal caused a shock that spread through every corner of the baseball world almost instantly. Otani's comment was brief. It was precise, and it was devastating in its simplicity. He reportedly said that an apology means nothing when the actions that require it were taken deliberately and publicly. He made clear that what Murakami did at that press conference was not a mistake that could be erased with words. It was a choice, and choices of that nature, made in public in front of the entire Japanese baseball community, carry consequences that go beyond what a personal apology can address. For those who know Otani, this response was both surprising and completely consistent with who he is. He is not a person who performs forgiveness for the sake of appearances. He is not someone who will publicly accept an apology that he does not genuinely feel is sufficient simply because doing so would be the easier and more convenient path. When Otani makes a statement, it carries the full weight of his character behind it. And his refusal to accept Murakami's apology carried more weight than almost anything else that has happened in this entire situation. The response to Otani's refusal has been extraordinary. Within the Japanese baseball community, opinions are divided in a way that reflects the complexity of the situation. There are those who believe Otani's response was entirely appropriate, that Murakami's conduct was so damaging and so public that a quiet personal apology was simply not adequate, and that Otani was right to refuse it. These voices argue that maintaining standards in Japanese baseball requires exactly this kind of firm and unambiguous response from its most respected figure. But there are also those who feel that Otani's refusal, while understandable, closes a door that should perhaps remain at least partially open. Baseball is a sport built on redemption stories, and there are people within the community who believe that completely shutting the door on Murakami serves no one's long-term interests. Not Japanese baseball's, not Otani's, and ultimately not even Murakami's own. Former players who have spoken publicly about the situation have largely sided with Otani. Several veteran NPB figures have stated that what Murakami did at that press conference crossed a line that simply cannot be forgiven with a phone call or a private message. They argue that the damage was done publicly, and the response to it must reflect that public dimension. Inside the White Sox organization, Ohtani's reaction is said to have been noted carefully. The organization has always been aware of the unique dynamic between Ohtani and the Japanese baseball community, and they understand that his response carries meaning beyond the personal. When Shohei Ohtani refuses an apology, it signals to the entire baseball world that the standard for conduct has not been met. That signal is one that the White Sox front office is taking very seriously as they consider how to manage Murakami's situation going forward. The question that now hangs over everything is simple and brutally direct. Does Takashi Murakami have a future in professional baseball? The one-year suspension from the White Sox removes him from MLB competition for the foreseeable future. His declared departure from Japanese baseball closes the door on an NPB return, at least for now. Ohtani's refusal to accept his apology has made it clear that the most powerful and respected figure in Japanese baseball does not consider this matter resolved. And the public reaction to his press conference remarks has damaged his reputation in ways that will not easily be repaired. Those close to Murakami say he is fully aware of the severity of his situation. The declaration he made about leaving Japanese baseball, which seemed bold and defiant in the moment it was delivered, now looks like a statement made without fully considering the consequences that were about to follow. A departure made on manager Ibata and NPB leadership are now faced with the challenge of managing not just the fallout from Murakami's specific actions, but the broader questions about team culture, player conduct standards, and the relationship between NPB players and the national team program that this situation has raised. These are not questions that will be answered quickly or easily, but they are questions that the events of the past few days have made impossible to avoid. For Samurai Japan, which is still competing in an active tournament and still carrying the expectations of an entire nation, the challenge is to find a way to move forward without the shadow of this situation darkening everything that follows. Whether they are capable of doing that will depend on the leadership of Ohtani, the resilience of the players who remain unaffected, and the ability of those in charge to draw a clear and convincing line between what happened and what comes next. Thank you for watching. This situation is still developing, and every new detail that emerges is more significant than the last. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Ohtani was right to refuse Murakami's apology? And what do you think the future holds for Murakami after everything that has happened? If you want to stay updated on every major development in this story as it unfolds, make sure you subscribe to the channel right now. This is one story we will be following very closely.